Some reporters are beginning to refer to the whole mess surrounding the release of the DNR's E. coli reports as Dirty Watergate. Jason Rosenbaum looks at how this is affecting Governor Nixon's administration and whether all the negative attention will have a long-term effect on Democrats in the state.
When Governor Jay Nixon came into office, his selected team included a mix of former legislators, private sector attorneys, and staffers that came over from his long tenure as the state's attorney general. So it may be fair to assume that the Democratic governor's administration would be experienced and sharp enough to avoid substantial mistakes. But the last few weeks prove that any gubernatorial squad can and will break down. This tempest I'm talking about involves how much the governor's administration knew about the suppression of water tests, showcasing high levels of E. coli at the Lake of the Ozarks. The first wave of the controversy unfolded when the governor's spokesman told press outlets that nobody in Nixon's camp heard about the tests until June. But numerous reports that came out recently showed that members of the governor's staff knew about the report in late May. That revelation was politically perilous by itself, but in a hastily arranged Wednesday conference call with reporters, Nixon said that his administration was originally told that beaches in the lake were closed after high E. coli tests were shown. But he said that those beaches remained open, even with high levels of the bacteria. Nixon went on to say that the failure to close the beaches meant that Missourians were, quote, needlessly put at risk, and he closed by announcing that the director of DNR, Mark Templeton, had been suspended for 2 weeks. The Associated Press reported this week that Nixon himself didn't learn about the situation until he read about it in the Kansas City Star. The wire service quoted a political science professor stating that Nixon was either being kept in a protected bubble or decided not to micromanage a situation that could be left to aides. The flap, which has been described as E. coli Gate and Dirty Watergate by reporters, could have significant consequences. In addition to potentially dragging down Nixon's popularity, the controversy could present a problem for Missouri Democrats seeking to gain a foothold in the GOP-dominated General Assembly. It could also affect tourism in one of the most popular vacation destinations in the state. But the controversy could provide long-term damage to the credibility of Nixon's administration. If an administration can get into such a mess over something as routine as maintaining a lake, it brings about questions of competence, and it shows that a gubernatorial team with experience isn't necessarily immune from being sunk into a political muck. If there's any bright spot for Nixon, it's that this episode occurred early in his term as governor. If he can push through this and prevent reoccurrences in the future, he may be better off. But to do that, he might have to take a good look at the people who make up his administration. I'm Jason Rosenbaum.
And before we wrap up this week, a note about a new project we're delving into at KBIA. In an effort to bring you more political coverage throughout the week, we've redesigned the look of our politics website. You can check it out at kbia.org. There are lots of new features, including a couple political blogs, daily updated content, and headlines from across the nation. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thanks for listening. I'm Sarah Whitmire.